What's up, everybody? Well, I got another video for you guys today, and today we're going to be looking at Assassins Creed Valhalla again, only this time we're going to do it at 3440 by 1440 on this 34-inch IPS ultra-wide monitor. We're all set up, got my laptop sitting on top of the computer where it can't fall off, decided to even turn the computer off so even the fans from it don't give it, extra cooling capacity. That's why I don't use the cooling pad anymore, because it makes it look way better than it is, and people get theirs and go, why is mine getting up to 96 and yours isn't? And so I'm like, well, I have a badass cooling pad. I don't know what to tell you. But it's not even really necessary to have that. I mean, the CPU can legitimately get up to 105C before it even starts throttling performance back. So unless you're getting that hot, I wouldn't worry too much about it, because you're going to add a lot more noise. But if you're like me and you just want the lowest temps and the highest performance, then cooling pad's the way to go for this laptop. Anyway though, why don't we jump in and have a look at the settings, shall we? Alrighty, starting off real quick, we'll just have one look at the screen settings here. So we're full screen, 3440 1440, 120 Hz, no VSync, no resolution scales maxed out, so we're not at under our native res. And with that, I say it's time to go have a look at the graphics settings. Let us have a quick look at the graphics settings now. And they are on low to start with, so we'll just quickly scroll through all of these really fast. Okay, that's good enough. So for low benchmark, here's our system info and our game settings. We averaged 109, min of 71, a max of 140. There's our 1% lows. That's how many frames rendered. There's our CPU and GPU MS right there, our VRAM and our GPU. Starting out our low gameplay here. Man, 4K just makes low look even worse, because then you can really see all the, well, lack of detail, I guess we'll call it. But hey, if you want to get like 125 FPS or so, that's cool. And ultra-wide's still pretty cool. It works in most games, but it just sucks when it doesn't. So that's why my new favorite gaming monitor is my 4K C1 OLED TV. Thing is sick to use as a monitor. You just have to be slightly careful with burn-in. But so far, had it quite a few months, no burn-in. And even if I do get burn-in and it gets too bad, whatever. I'll just buy another one. It's not a huge deal. Keep on running around here just for a little bit more. Alright, why don't we just move on right now? Well, alright. Got my controller hooked up this time, because it was already hooked up to the secondary computer, so hooking it up to the laptop was simple. Barely had to get up from my chair. Jeez, I almost lost my voice for a second there. So I figure we'll just get a little bit of gameplay here. About the same amount of time as we did from the other. And low just looks like absolute dog shit. But, I mean, how good should I really expect low to look, right? This is meant for, like, super low-end stuff. Like, if you still just want to play and you don't care about graphics and you just want to play the game, well, you can play it on an old-ass GPU. But it's not for stuff like this laptop. No. Alright, this looks like a mighty fine spot to stop. So, now let's go and move on to the next graphics setting. Now to have a look at our medium settings. Almost bottom. And there we go. I think that's good enough. Here's the benchmark for medium. And the info right there for the system. Here's our game settings right there. We averaged 87 this time with a minimum of 34, a max of 159. There's our 1% and 0.1% lows, our frames rendered, our CPU and GPU MS right there, and lastly our GPU and VRAM. Okay, so now we're going to do medium screen recorded gameplay here, and hey, look at that, we actually have terrain. It still doesn't look great, but at least there's a terrain now. And we lost quite a big FPS. But you'd expect that, because now it actually has to draw something on the ground instead of just being like, the ground is green. Here's some slightly brown ground. Now here's some greener ground, you know? Oh, here's some dirt. Now you can actually see, like, stuff. Like grass and leaves and what have you. Ooh, raspberries. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can get down over here somewhere. Yep, right here. Alright. And now, why don't we just move on? So, now let's get a little bit of some medium camera recorded gameplay in here. Already looking massively better than low. But as we've discussed, low is just for low-end shit that really probably shouldn't be playing the game, but if you don't care about anything and want to play it, boom. Medium is for your maybe a little bit older laptop or desktop, where you can still enjoy the game. This is probably pretty similar, besides the ultra-wide, obviously, to what it looked like on PS4 or something. I think the only difference is PS4 might have high textures, because as old as it is and as shitty as the processor is, at least it has an okay amount of VRAM for its age. I think it's got like something like 6 to 7 gigs of VRAM on that thing. But unfortunately, that Jaguar processor on the PS4 holds it back so much. Same with the old Xbox One and One X and all those. Didn't matter what kind of GPU put on there. That CPU held everything back. But heck, now look at the PS5 and Xbox One X. Obviously all my PCs are still way more powerful, but at least they're not terrible, and you can do stuff at 4K in some games. At most games are at least 60 FPS. So much better, especially for $500. Can't really complain with that, unless you're just a hater. But me, I still like my PCs. I like building them, I like gaming on them, I like choosing my settings, doing things my way, you know? But mostly with PCs, my favorite part's the building process. Probably the same satisfaction people get from like putting together a car or something in their garage, you know? Anyway though, let's move on to the next graphics setting. Now let's have a quick look at the high settings. And if anybody wants to gain some FPS, you could always just turn anti-aliasing down. You don't really need it at these higher resolutions like ultra-wide and 4K. Maybe 2.4x at 1440p sometimes. But let's move on. So now the benchmark for very high is all finished. There's our set info and settings. We average 74, minimum of 40, max of 130. There's our 1%, 0% lows, and our frame rendered. CPU and GPU MS right there, and our VRAM and our GPU. Alright, now we got a little bit of some high gameplay here. And Misty has come to visit. Well, hello. So let's just run around. We're still getting some pretty decent FPS, I would say. Gortnaw. I'm about to say high is a great way to play this game. At least on ultra-wide. We'll probably have to mix settings at 4K if you want a 60 FPS experience, but not doubt in my mind this laptop can handle it at 4K too. Just not maxed out, no way. Alright though, why don't we move along? Now for some high camera recorded gameplay here. Let's turn around and go closer to this village again. I feel like that gets us best low frames of any place, having all these like random people around. Let's just run through here. Be like a worst case scenario running through a town. We haven't really done much of that yet, so why not do it at the higher resolutions? Because if it can handle it at the higher resolutions, it'll have no problem with the lower resolutions. So we got a little stutter there. On my way. You drunk? Although I'm sitting here playing this game stoned, driving a wolf while intoxicated, technically, so I guess I shouldn't yell at him. Ha! Now in my head I'm just imagining what it would be like to get pulled over by a cop while on the back of this wolf. Oh man, that would be a funny episode of Cops. But it's time for us to move on. On to the very high graphic settings now. Let's have a quick look at these. I don't know why, but this music always reminds me of Horizon Zero Dawn's music. Anyway, why don't we move on? Very high benchmark all finished now. Here's our info and settings. And this time we averaged 70, min 34, max 127. Here's our 1% and 0.1% lows, and our frames rendered right there. There's our CPU MS and GPU MS. And here's our VRAM and our GPU. Okay, so now let's get a little very high gameplay in. And look at that, it's actually still so far staying above 60. What I ought to start doing is start going into the town and just seeing how that does. Alright. Alright though, why don't we move along? Now we've got some very high camera recorded gameplay. Figure we'll run on through town here again.
I should not be seen in this area.
I cannot go that way. But I can still just kind of walk through here. Get some more quests. Such a bustling city. And there we go, we're out the other side. Off into the wilderness we go. But alright, why don't we move on to the last graphics setting? So we're gonna move along to ultra high now, so we'll just look at the settings, then we'll do a benchmark, and then we can get on to the gameplay and see how it does. Might even be able to do this at over 60, I'm not even sure. Alright, last up on the screen recorded here is some Ultra gameplay, so let's get into it. And also jump over rocks. Rock fences, to be exact. You know what, yeah. If we can stay above 60 running through here, then you could probably stay above 60 almost everywhere. You might have an area here and there that might drop down to like 58, 56. Like in the utmost of like, you know, dense towns or something. But so far so good. Go ultra wide. We are probably not going to be able to do this at ultra high at 4K, I can tell you that right now. But at least it can at ultra wide. Alright, and with that, let's wrap this on up and go to camera recorded. Ow. Felt like I had to sneeze and then I couldn't, and then my nose just did that weird burning shit. That shit ever happen to you guys? Anyway, now we are on to ultra high graphics settings camera recorded. Let's turn around and just kind of head back the way we came. Well, we're dropping close to getting under 60, and I noticed we did a couple of times in the benchmark, but so far while I've been playing, I don't think it's dropped under 60. Oh, of course, 58. So, it did once. But without that frickin' frame rate counter, I don't think I'd have noticed. Makes me wonder how it's going to do at 4K. I'm definitely not expecting it to do very high and ultra high, but I bet you it can actually do high and get pretty close to 60. Oh, 4K. I guess we'll find out real soon now, won't we? Hey, a cow. And alright, with that, I think it's time to wrap this video on up. Well, alright guys, we're all done with 3440 by 1440, and it did great. Even on ultra high settings, it stayed above 60 most of the time, and without a frame rate counter, I don't think you'd ever notice, you know, it ever dropping to like 58, 56, something like that. Maybe if it was dropping way down into the 30s, you'd definitely notice that, but that's not the case. So, I'm pretty impressed, and very excited to try out 4K now, because it sounds like it's probably going to be playable on a majority of the settings till we get up to probably very high and ultra high, but guess we'll find out in the next video. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and until the next one, peace out guys.